America's iconic family-friendly strip club that occasionally serves chicken wings is not doing too well.
The Hooters restaurant chain is said to be on the brink of bankruptcy. Bloomberg is reporting that the company wants to restructure its business. Hooters, like a lot of other casual dining chains, reportedly seeing fewer customers because of the rising costs of food and rent. The filing is expected to happen in the next couple of months.
Now, did you catch that one moment in the clip? You know, where the waitress is taking away the dishes and the guy at the table just stares at her behind as she walks away? I know that's not the focus of the clip, but that is the essence of Hooters, and that is why it has lasted as long as it has. Because it's the one place where a guy can sit down, enjoy some wings, watch some sports, and occasionally stare at a girl's ass, and no one really questions it. I mean, it's like, dude, that's what I paid for. So even though Hooters has been kept on life support by the sheer willpower of men who simply can't resist seeing a little bit of cleavage and some orange shorts, that can only last you so long. Now, Hooters has been on the decline for quite some time now, and that's largely attributed to its overall decrease in quality and its outdated branding.
Hooters is another chain that we're watching closely. It's a legacy brand that everyone knows, but they have new competitors, and they've not refreshed the brand in a way that gets people back into their restaurants.
Hooters used to be a cultural icon, and now it's basically turning into a case study on how you can financially speed run a brand into the dirt. But here's where the bankruptcy situation started. So in 2019, Hooters was acquired by Nordbay and Tri-Artisan Capital. Now, who are these guys, you ask? Well, they're just your typical private equity firms. You know, the ones that swoop in, buy a struggling business, and then promise to turn things around. And yeah, they actually did such a good job of that by 2021, which was 2 years after they acquired Hooters was now $300 million in debt. Now, how in the hell did that happen? Well, that's because the private equity firms that bought Hooters, they pulled off something called a leveraged buyout. And this is where instead of using their own money to buy Hooters, they financed most of the purchase with debt. And here's the kicker. They loaded that debt onto Hooters itself. So Hooters wasn't just bought. It was essentially forced to pay for its own acquisition. So now, Hooters is on the hook for a massive loan. And to secure that loan, the private equity firm uses Hooters' own assets as collateral. So if Hooters fails, the private equity firm doesn't lose much because they're not the ones who are personally liable for that debt anymore. And what does that mean for Hooters? Well, now jobs get slashed, operations get downsized, and then quality goes down the drain just so that they can try to keep up with the debt payments. At this point, it's like watching a once thriving restaurant slowly morph into a gas station deli with a dress code, all because some Wall Street wizards decided that debt slavery was the best way to save the company. Fast forward to 2024, and Hooters is getting absolutely body slammed by financial reality. Throughout the year, they were taking 4 times longer to pay their suppliers compared to other restaurants, which is basically the corporate version of saying, yeah, sorry bro, I'll get you next paycheck though. And then you completely ghost them. And in the midst of all that, they had to shut down over 40 locations because they just couldn't afford to keep them up and running. At this point, it's not even about paying for your bills. You're basically trying to run a restaurant like it's a Netflix subscription that you forgot to cancel 3 years ago. And in February 2025, Bloomberg reported that Hooters is now working with a law firm to file for bankruptcy. And while the bankruptcy is not 100% set in stone yet, the expectation is that this court process could kick off in the next 2 months. Apparently, they're in some talks with creditors right now, trying to come up with a plan to restructure the whole business. But at this point, it's like watching a slow motion train wreck where the train conductor is insisting, nah, we'll be fine. Meanwhile, the whole train is actually on fire. At this point, it's less of a rescue mission and more of a funeral with some extra paperwork. Now, while things like declining customer foot traffic, financial struggles, and then just struggles in the restaurant industry as a whole have been the catalyst to Hooters' decline, some people don't think that's the case. And what I mean by that is some people think that Hooters' decline is mostly because of fat and black women. For instance, take a look at this post about Hooters declaring bankruptcy. Someone replies with, "Deserved for hiring fat and black women." Now, this whole narrative is built on a couple viral photos of some plus-size Hooters women or a bunch of anecdotal experiences about DEI hires. But the reality is, the vast majority of Hooters employees still fit that mold of what you expect a Hooters girl to look like. Because let's be honest, if the vast majority of Hooters locations across America were 90% staffed with fat and black women, you don't think we'd be hearing about that in the media every single day? The media would be all over this and turning it into a full-blown culture war issue. But if you want to pretend like this tiny fraction of employees is the reason that Hooters is going bankrupt, then you're just wrong. This is like walking into a grocery store and then seeing a product that you don't like and going, this is the reason why this grocery store is going bankrupt. Because of this product right over here. Never mind the fact that every other product over there looks as it should and you're not going to complain about that. But yeah, when you see the one thing that you don't like, Now, yeah, this is the fall of Rome. And look, if there was actual empirical data that showed a direct causal link between Hooters' decline and hiring fat and black workers, then I would actually be willing to listen. But all you have is people giving their anecdotal experiences or people that post flat out bullshit like this. Like, in which world do you live in where this is what the average employee of a Hooters looks like? Or if you admit that, yeah, maybe these aren't the majority of Hooters workers. If that's the case, then why even bring this up when this is such a minuscule issue compared to everything else that Hooters is going through? The reality is, Hooters' problems are way bigger than the employees that they hired. Their branding, which was once edgy and unique, has become super stale. Take this post, for example, that says Hooters is facing bankruptcy as Gen Z men prefer to get stoned at home, gamble on their phones, and look at porn while waiting for DoorDash instead. That's at least a more sensible argument. It's not taking these fringe cases of some employees you see a guy posting about on Twitter and saying, ha, see, that's why Hooters is failing. This post is pointing out that Hooters is simply stuck in a time capsule where people used to think that going to a restaurant and looking at girls showing their cleavage and wearing orange shorts was a cultural experience. Meanwhile, Gen Z is like, nah, I think I'm good. I got my weed, I got my phone, and I got my DoorDash delivery driver who's probably seen me in my underwear. Now, besides having outdated branding, Hooters went from having a monopoly over the market of Breastaurants, which I learned is actually a real term used to talk about these kind of places, to now having a bunch of competition within that market. So even though Hooters might be going down, the concept of Hooters isn't dead at all. You know, like capitalizing on guys being horny so that you can get them to spend money. Yeah, that concept is very alive and well. And it's been taken by places like Twin Peaks or even bikini barista stands, and it's been turned into something that would appeal to a modern audience. For instance, Twin Peaks, they have this whole man cave thing going on with a sports lodge aesthetic. They also got better food, a beer selection that doesn't taste like it was brewed in a bathtub, and it's basically like Hooters, but if Hooters actually tried to be a place you'd want to go to, even if you're past the age of 16. And I think even most of their food is homemade. And then you have bikini barista stands. And these places have taken the whole attractive server thing and made it convenient so that you don't even have to get out of your car. You roll up, get your coffee, and maybe a little, oh wow, you're so funny and interesting. And then you drive off thinking you just made that girl's day. It's like Hooters for people who don't have the time to sit down and pretend that they went there for the wings. Meanwhile, the actual Hooters is out here resting on its legacy like it's still 1995. So no, the decline of Hooters isn't because of fat and black women, and apparently fat men too, that I guess you can find in Pennsylvania serving at their Hooters. But yeah, I guess if Hooters really does have to close all their locations, I guess you'll just have to wait until Halloween until you can see another Hooters girl. That's pretty much all I got for now. Take care, everyone.